Lima, brought to you by Good Food Restaurants, home of Happy Days, Beer Barrel, and Old City Pride. Also by Fresh and Faded, Jones Clark Funeral Home, and Lima Pallet Company.
During and after the holidays, this time can be full of joy, but for many others, it can be a time of overwhelming sadness and hopelessness. With Ohio's suicide rate increasing dramatically, every 33 hours, a young person in Ohio dies by suicide. The current director of Ohio Department of Health calling suicide a public health epidemic. Today, we are joined with Christina Ryan Claypool. Christina, welcome. It's a pleasure having you, and as we get close to Christmas, it can be certainly 38 hours away from the Christmas season. It can certainly be a joyous time of year. But when I thought about this show, Christina, I didn't want it to be one where people felt that it was going to bring people sadness. But I want people to walk away from this show, and sometimes when you ask, what do you want your viewing audience to remember when the show ends? A sense of hope and opportunity. One thing came across, and I'd like to share this with you, and certainly people in Lima know your background. Christina, you're sort of well known.
This is my hometown, really. Yeah. I mean, I was born in Carroll and moved to Lima at 8 months.
Yeah, and people sometimes forget when they talk about your website. I was on your website when I was watching you and looking at you, and I'm thinking, wow, there's a journalist, a writer, an author, a mother, a wife, college instructor. How would you want to be remembered?
Oh my goodness. If I were to write my obituary, is that what you're saying?
Yes, how would you want people, I think in the end, people need to feel a sense of, if I weren't here, how would I want people to know I existed? And when you talk about Christina Ryan, she's many people and many things.
And I appreciate you asking that question, because I really, this is my hometown, but I haven't lived here for quite some years. I live near, down near Dayton now, in that vicinity. And so I think about that, not being from here now. And people know a certain segment of your life. We all know that about somebody. If people would have only known me early, they would have said there was no hope for my recovery, that I would never even be here today, that I wouldn't have lived this long. But when you reach an older age, and I am a little bit older, right? I've thought about that, the obituary. I've had to write obituaries, and I wouldn't want them to remember, you know, the famous words of Martin Luther King Jr.? You know, he didn't care about the awards. He didn't care about all the accomplishments and the things he did, but he would hope that they would remember that he tried to help somebody. Right. I hope people will remember that was my goal, to use the brokenness that I went through to channel it and to try to say to people, hang on. A day at a time.
And that's what I want to get across. And you and I had the pleasure of talking over the phone a few times, but having that dialogue, Christine, I always came back to saying, wow, Christina is a powerful person. Christina has done things that many people only dream of. Award-winning author, you've been in TV shows, you've been through that. But at the end, Christina, people need to realize there is still a part of you that is continuing, because you said it to me on the phone. I don't want to come across as if there's a magic potion out there, if I can be so cavalier, to say, I've come from here and you can also be here.
I appreciate that. And if you read my Facebook post from yesterday, it was really interesting, because I talked about the fact that at 17 years old, I was in Toledo State Mental Hospital, that I was a patient there, that I had almost died by suicide, and that the prognosis probably was not good. But, you know, and years in and out of psych wards. And so I guess that when we look back on those things, then we have to be honest, because I did find faith on a psychiatric ward right here in Lima, Ohio. When I was in my early 30s, I had been in and out of that psych ward in my youth, but hadn't been in for 10 years, but in my early 30s, working on a master's degree, a corporate sales rep. Everybody would have said I had everything, but that broken little person inside of me said, I don't have everything. And I became a Christian believer. I began reading the Bible, and things changed. But that does not mean it's not a day at a time. That does not mean the darkness does not come, that depression does not come, and that it's a fight, Jerome. It is a battle. When we have had a mental health issue, everybody wants it to be an instantaneous miracle, or for there to be a pill that will fix it all, but life is hard.
And I want to make sure, particularly our viewing audience out there, understand that Christina doesn't come across, and it's sort of a disclaimer. We're not doing what we call couch psychoanalysts. Follow me, Christina?
Right.
We want people who feel that there is somebody out there who you can reach out to, that you can talk, that you can communicate. As Christina said, when she came from here to this place of hope, we want you to feel that same by picking up the phone and calling a specialist or a counselor. But at the same time, Christina, I want to talk to you about something that when reading over the material that I think is important. I thought, what one word could describe how we want people in the viewing audience to be able to walk away, whether or not it's the holiday, Christina, and you're just overwhelmed with bills, you're overwhelmed with the hope that your kid got something that you weren't able to provide to them, Christina. And people sometimes get into a dark space. But you know what I found reading your material, and that there's one word that kept popping up. Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Now let me quote you here. Forgiveness is truly a gift we give ourselves. Mm-hmm. It is the condition of the heart where we let go of bitterness, anger, and the desire for revenge and find emotional freedom. And that, Christina, just stuck with me. Not just forgiving those who have done harm to you or opportunity, but forgiving yourself. Can you talk about that in terms of those out there who are looking at you today?
Forgiving yourself, I mean, my goodness, when you come from the kind of broken background and poor choices that I made as a young person, also struggled with drug and alcohol addiction in my youth, trying to self-medicate. I am not against psychiatric drugs to help people.
Right, Christina?
But you know, I did go through a lot of things that were not good things, and I guess that's the biggest gift you can give yourself, because if our life, we can be filled with regrets. And Christmas can do that. You're talking about Christmas?
Yes.
And the grief of missing people, the grief of the poor choices that we've made in our lives. It can be overwhelming. And so if we aren't kind to ourselves and love ourselves the way that we love other people.
And part of that, though, and I'm glad you spoke on that, Christine, because it's important to me, is that when I read your books, and certainly I encourage everybody to read the book. Follow me, Christine. You have a segment in the Chicken Soup book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Forgiveness Fix, and your story is powerful. But you know what else, Christina, Ryan? There are a number of stories in here that will make you make you like, wait a moment. And it seemed to be, the forgiveness seemed to be the holistic approach to saying, you know what, it's okay. I may be feeling bad today. This may be what I'm going through, and there may be all sorts of reasons, but tomorrow will be a brighter day.
There was a story in there that really ministered to me. I have lost family members to suicide, and because of what I've tried to do, use my own testimony. I'm not a counselor, I'm not good at that, but my testimony of speaking to people, and to lose members of my family myself was a horrific pain and grief. So I think that was important. That story really ministered to me. And in my other book, I'd really like to talk about that issue of suicide for a second. Mm-hmm. That's why I inserted that in my recent novel, Secrets of the Pastor's Wife, because are you familiar with that?
You think? I've read that book, and I can tell you, Christina, it touched me, and I want people to talk about this. Let's take a break, Christina. When we come back, we're going to talk about suicide and your position on it.
Thank you.
From early in the morning when the Happy Days stores open, turn the grills on, get the coffee turned on. Across town, the beer barrels, there's a lot of prep work that has to be done. Sauces being prepped on the stove. At Old City Prime, everything's from scratch. I think the culture in our company is that we care about our people. And in return, our people care about our customers. Thank you so much to all of our team that's worked for us, and thank you so much to all the communities that we're in for being such great customers.
Our barbers and cosmetologists are licensed professionals who specialize in all phases of hair. Whether you are getting a line-up, cut, beard trim, or design, our barbers will help create your unique style. With full-time cosmetologists, also taking appointments and walk-ins from lashes, presses, color, wax to braids, and weaves, Fresh and Faded cosmetologists do it all. Call us for an appointment today. Fresh and Faded Unisex Hair Studio, the largest shop in Northwest Ohio. 419-221-FADE.
If you ain't fresh, you ain't faded.
Welcome back to Hello Lima. Talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, that of mental health and their ability to overcome. Christina had the process of being able to talk about suicide, and it touched me because of what people in the community and across the state of Ohio are considering an epidemic. That's how fast it seems to be getting out of hand. Can you talk about where the community or how that is affected? I know it's something that you've gone through, but why? is there what's going on?
Oh my goodness, that's such a huge question, right? And you're right.
And remember, Christina, we want our viewers to know that we're going to post a phone number as the show winds down, along with a text message. Go ahead, Christina. Where are we going with suicide? How do we resolve what seems to be something that is causing so much anguish?
Well, again, you have very brief time, so we
Yes.
look at a recent headline said suicide rose in Ohio alone 45% since '07. Some things have really been introduced, Jerome. There are shows like 13 Reasons Why, books like Me Before You, which really expresses maybe the worthlessness of life, and that's so not true. It's exploiting. Awareness for suicide is good. Prevention is good. Glamorizing suicide, which a show to teenagers like 13 Reasons Why was not good. Thankfully, it's been canceled. Again, we have social media. Social media creates a lot of loneliness within people. It also is that Pinterest perfect, that Facebook perfect, where every picture looks like everybody's okay.
And reading some of your material, Christine, you're a big advocate of slowing down the phone, slowing down what social media has taken over, for lack of a better phrase. Go ahead, Christina.
No, that's really correct. And because we are comparing ourselves and then we come up very short. And when you're very young, when you're 15, 16, 17, or 10, as we saw in the news this week, a 10-year-old take their life, you don't realize, you haven't had the life experience to understand that I will get through this. I'm in a trauma. Maybe my girlfriend broke up with me, my boyfriend broke up with me, but I will live through that. You don't know that. So, and social media shows you everyone happy, or else maybe there's bullying on social media. And also maybe absent parents being involved with their own lives, and kids on video games. Nobody likes me to talk about this, but you know, we've got violent video games that kids are playing 8-10 hours a day, right? And things like that in a young mind that's impressionistic, or in an unbalanced mind. Those of us, I struggle with depression on occasion. I have to be very cautious of what I see, what I take in, who I associate with.
All those environmental factors can be a contributory factor, Christina, to how people are.
Absolutely. I have to be very cautious. That's why I can't be a counselor to people, because, you know, I'm processing through my own a day at a time things. Well, everyone has to kind of find their balance of eating right, simple things, sleeping 8 hours a day, avoiding street drugs. Okay, you're not going to feel good. Excess alcohol, we find at the holidays. People have lots of sugar, lots of alcohol, and they become extremely depressed.
And having said that, and again, our disclaimers, Christina's not a counselor, nor is she appearance one on TV, but going on your website, reading your books, Christina, can help. I know we've got your website up. We're hoping that people take an opportunity to go visit, because sometimes, Christina, going through what people have gone through is a redeeming factor in and of itself. You can speak to things, if I can say that, you were a cutter at one time. You've been through a mental illness. You spent time in a psychiatric hospital. But saying all that, Christina, part of that process is that you can speak to somebody without being the counselor and tell them that there is hope. There is forgiveness.
And that's why I'm here today. This isn't easy to talk about, but I also understand losing someone to suicide that I love more than my own life. And the one thing I had to find through that was to kind of restart my purpose, because if we don't find purpose in this tragedy, we're not going to make it to the other side. So that book, Secrets of the Pastor's Wife, I inserted a suicide, a veteran suicide specifically, because we have to address that issue. That's one of the secrets. It's just a minor secret, but a very, very crucial secret. Because we can use fiction. Everything that we can do is to create awareness once we've come from the other side, if we want to help people.
If you want to be something that somebody can look at and say, this is what I went through, here's where you can get through and how you can get that help. And I really make sure that the audience understands the secret of a pastor's wife is worth the nickel that's available. We'll have some handouts to give also. But Christina, that and our viewers, think about this. Christina, follow me. New Year comes a couple of weeks away. It's going to be an opportunity for people to feel a rejoice, a renewed emphasis on, you know what, today is a better day than yesterday, and tomorrow's going to be a better day than today. Can you talk about, Christina, how people can continue? And I want to make sure I stress this to our audience. How do people continue to get up every day? And I hope hopelessness and despair of going through losing someone to suicide or having somebody addicted and you can't help them no matter how much you try? How do you continue to fight through that every day? How do you tell an audience member that say, you know what, it's going to be all right tomorrow?
Well, I think it's really important to know, again, I'm not an expert, but statistics say that when you have experienced a loved one's suicide, that your propensity for committing or completing suicide becomes much higher.
Yes.
So you have to understand that the pain that you're going through, which is so horrific, you don't want to put that pain on someone else. So there will be either, say you're a mother, there will be your son, or there will be your husband, and you are putting them at such risk, so it is hard to live through. But it is like waiting a day at a time.
Okay.
And again, I can't speak enough to finding purpose. I can't speak enough to that, because unless we find purpose in our tragedy, I really don't know how to process. And then, of course, for me, the faith issue of believing that God still has a plan and a purpose. Like Pastor Rick Warren,
purpose-driven life,
right? He lost his son to suicide 7 years ago, and he's on the forefront now of mental health awareness, saying we need to be aware, the church needs to be aware, the community needs to be aware, and we need more resources.
Continue to explore those resources that could be available, making sure that the audience understands a purpose-driven life is good stuff. Follow me, Christina?
Yes, it is a great book.
It is a great book if you haven't read it. And I think that's important. Back in my old days, Christina, I used to be in the nursing home field, and I used to tell people all the time, isolation, follow me, Christina?
Thank you, that's
A
important.
sense of non-purpose is what drives many 70 and 80-year-old people to the hopelessness of being. A lot of people in the nursing home, real quick, Christina, don't die because of an illness or an acute episode. You know what they die of, Christina? Giving up. Isolation.
I believe that.
And
I totally believe
and
that.
I'm telling people, put down those phones. Get off that Facebook. Go out and find, you know what, Christina, and I want you to talk on this. Better to have 2 or 3 good friends than have 5,000 followers you don't know.
Absolutely.
Christina? So the world is becoming a fixation on trying to get as many followers as I can get. And when you get to that point of loneliness, and we all get there, follow me, Christina, everybody goes through that. You look up and say, wait a moment, who's talking to me? How can I pick up the phone and call a friend and say, hey, can you come over and have a cup of coffee, have some tea? That is what you go through every day, right, Christina? Still to this day, as a journalist, as an author, as a wife, as a mother, as you still continue to process
experience loneliness. Absolutely. That's another reason I wrote Secrets of the Pastor's Wife, because the primary focus of the book is about a friendship.
Yes, it is.
A friendship, right? And we are losing friendship because people are so busy being involved in texting and social media, but that's not like what you said, sitting down and having a cup of coffee.
It's in the pastor's wife. It's a coffee shop. Follow me?
Right.
She befriends somebody who she feels as if a daughter she never had, and you know what started the whole process, Christina? Sit down, let's have a cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee.
Follow me? You don't have to be a counselor, Christina, to help somebody. What you can have is apathy, understanding, a sense of saying, you know what, here's where we are, here's how we can get to that next day and that next day and continue to move over. And I want to stress on this, Christina, because I want the audience to understand that Christina has resources. You go to your website. You blog, Christina?
Yes, of course.
And you continue to talk about, yes.
All writers.
Yes. So we're going to do this. We got another special guest, Christina. I hope you can stay around with. It's somebody who has kind of taken Lima by storm with the YouTube matter. She's going to join us in a little while. You guys are going to see and hear another touching story.
We at Lima Pallet Company thank you, Lima. In 1977, we started a small family business, and today we continue to grow. Lima Pallet is a full-service pallet and crate provider. Every customer is unique, which is why we build pallets and crates to our customers' specific requirements. Because we have our own fleet of trucks, we're able to provide customers with on-time, same-day, and 24-hour emergency deliveries. Coming together is the beginning, keeping it together is progress, and working together is success. Let's continue to succeed.
The loss of a loved one can leave you with a lot of unanswered questions, feelings of stress and anxiety, and grief that makes events difficult to handle. The experienced funeral directors at Jones Clark Funeral Home will guide you through the aspects of the funeral service with compassion, dignity, and respect. Our staff of dedicated professionals is available to assist you in making funeral service arrangements. The funeral directors at Jones Clark Funeral Home provide individualized funeral services designed to meet the needs of each family. Call us today to pre-plan your funeral.
Welcome back to Hello Lima. It's certainly a pleasure of having our guest today. Christina Ryan Claypool is with us today, and we've talked about some things that are close and dear to our heart. Also joined by Brooke Dungeon. Brooke is, for those of you guys who haven't driven around Lima, greater Lima area, I can tell you, you can see by the shirt she's wearing, she is the person behind the You Matter movement. And I call it a movement, Brooke, because it has taken the community by storm. Not only Lima and greater Lima, but this is being almost in every county is what you're pushing this out to, isn't it?
It is.
And things that you're doing for the community includes online shopping, and I know we're going to have that up online, and everybody can go to Brooke's Facebook page, which is Brady Bunch?
Yep, You Matter Brady's Bunch.
You Matter Brady's Bunch. So again, having that process in place is going to be helpful because as Christina and I talked about prior to Brooke joining us, not a lot of resources. And one of the things, and I want to get Brooke's position on this, is that people don't want to talk about the despair. And you talked about it, Christina. Those who have suffered suicide have a propensity to have it happen again or have a propensity to be a part of it. But when Brooke's come along, and I was able to hear Brooke speak at the Compassionate Friends movement, and I can tell you did a fabulous job. It's touched everybody to hear her speak. But what you've come along, Brooke, and say, you know what? I'm going to talk about this. And I want to quote something from you, Brooke. It said, I want to live each day with a passion for eternity, is what I heard you say. Can you talk about that? What does that mean to you?
I want to live. I want to see people see hope. Brady's gone. There's nothing I can do about that. Mm-hmm. So the way I live, I want people to know I'm living for eternity.
And when I heard Brooke speak, Christina, it was like, wait a moment, here's somebody who could easily go into a hole because I don't know how I would handle that, losing a loved one, losing a child to suicide. And seeing Christina, seeing Brooke so powerful and be such a voice for it. Follow me, Christina?
Can I interrupt
yes,
just a moment?
Can.
Because Brooke and I originally connected through Facebook when Brady had passed away, and that's been, how long was that? When you were going to go get his things when, in this just horrific time. But because of my having a loss in my background, I just kind of had empathy for it and just reached out and said, how are you? So how long has it been since you lost him?
I said this when I spoke at the church that it's been 23 months.
23 months.
But to me, it was yesterday.
Yeah. And one of the things, Brooke, and we sure have, and I appreciate you jumping in on that, Christina, they talked about some therapy that goes with those who lose one to suicide. And one of the therapy approaches is that they want you to go back to the moment that you just first heard the loss. And Brooke has allowed us to play this, and a little disclaimer here, it may not be suitable for everyone. Brooke has allowed us to play the audio when she first heard the loss of Brady. So we're going to take a minute and hear Brooke's audio.
Hey, Brooke.
Yeah.
And I'm here with...
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello. Hey.
We found Brady last night.
No. What?
They found him this morning.
No. 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 Are you serious? No. What do I do? I mean, what do I do?
Do you have anybody at home with you right now?
I'm in the car with my kids. No. Why? I need to call my mom and dad and Ron.
And we certainly aren't playing that, and we appreciate Brooke for the dramatic effect of a TV show. What we're trying to do today with Christina Ryan and with Brooke is to help people as we get close to the holiday season and we go through this. And Brooke has done a fabulous job of reaching out and making an impact. And those of you who have been in the community, the You Too Matter movement is making a difference in schools all across Lima community. Brooke, as you gather yourself, I'd like to have another quote that you said. Brooke said, "This is a message that came from Brooke, the strong lady sitting next to me. I decided to not let this make me bitter and hopelessness." Can you explain, Brooke, because your message is so important for the community?
Kind of like Christina said, I am trying to find purpose through my pain. That's what I tell people. Because it's so easy to get sucked in, sucked into the darkness and the sadness. Where there's impossible pain, there's possible power. I heard a pastor say once, and I grabbed onto that because there is.
What does You Matter mean to you, Brooke? What did you want the community and Brady's message to be with You Matter?
I want that.
A lot of times people see You Matter and they just kind of drive by and they can't. You wanted it to be a message of what, Brooke?
I want people who are just feeling down in the dumps to see that and make them just think twice. They may think that's a really dumb sign, but at least they saw it. And at least it got them thinking, you know.
And you're pushing that message through pins and you're pushing it through bands. I know I'm wearing one now, and T-shirts. But Brady was more than just a T-shirt. He was more than a band. He was somebody who was struggling, and your family was struggling to help. And I've heard your story. But Christina, jump in here when you want to, Christina. Her story is one of hope and forgiveness.
It is. But I have to make a disclaimer. Yes. Because those of us who have experienced that same type of phone call.
I'm listening.
Okay. That's very, very triggering. I mean, I even, I didn't know that was going to happen, so I do want to say that, we have to be very cautious because we don't want to trigger anybody into not realizing that's why we're here today, is to express that hope. And what the survivors go through is so horrific, Jerome. What the pain that she has inside, the pain that I had inside receiving, not losing a child, but a similar, losing someone to suicide. We don't want that repeated. Whatever it takes today, that's why she's here. It takes every act of obedience of, I can't even imagine how she does this.
Yes, and we appreciate Brooke. And those of us who won't get this full emphasize, we're going to be on Facebook Live with Brooke. We're going to web stream a show on Facebook Live. We also have a number that's going to be on the screen, Brooke. If you're someone you know is considering suicide, please contact the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Follow me, Christina Ryan. It's the number that you can pick up the phone, and I know that's what Christina is pushing, and I know that's Brooke. You can text at 741-741. And although this message seemed to be, how would you say it, Brooke? It was sad, and it was, but we're helping somebody. Follow me. Somebody out there right now is picking up the phone. Follow me. Who's saying, you know what? Look what Brooke has done. Follow me, Christina. I know it's tough, but what Brooke has done and what you're doing, Christina, is allowing people to realize I'm going to forgive myself, and as I forgive myself, I'm going to forgive my opportunity to say I did all I could, and I'm going to find a purpose in my life, and I'm going to move on. And that's what I want the audience to know today. If you like us on Facebook, too, we're going to have some books. We're going to have a couple of Christina Ryan books to give out for those who like it. And we're going to have a couple of You Matter T-shirts that we're going to give out also. So stay with us. Thank you, Christina Ryan. Thank you, Brooke. It was a pleasure having you guys.
Thank you.
Hello Lima, brought to you by Good Food Restaurants, home of Happy Days, Beer Barrel, and Old City Pride. Also by Fresh and Faded, Jones Clark Funeral Home, and Lima Pallet Company.